Probably
That's
something
awesome.
for the holidays. I'm trying to always do something for the holidays.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Alex, for being here. We have Alex Salcido of the Harm Brothers and also solo act. Going to be he's working on some of his own stuff right now, and hopefully we'll be seeing that in the next couple months. And of course, my phone rings right when I. Here we go. Alex, will you do me a favor and just introduce yourself a little bit better than I did?
Well, my name is Alex. I'm a songwriter and singer and performer. I'm part of a group called the Harm Brothers. Right now, we're currently on a extended hiatus due to the global bastard. Um, and I'm here to talk about Kurt Vonnegut and some of a couple of my favorite stories in the world.
Yeah, so you brought on Kurt Vonnegut, and to be totally honest with you, the only Vonnegut I ever read was Slaughterhouse-Five, and I liked it,
Yeah,
but it wasn't something where I was like, I got to go read another one. It was like, oh, this is good. And I actually read it twice, so I liked it. Um,
it's a pretty fun, like quick read. It's very thin, but it's pretty dense. It's good.
yeah, and honestly, if I've read it twice, and it would be one of those things where I couldn't tell you exactly what it's about right now. Um,
Hmm.
and and it's one of those I'd probably have to do a podcast on. And then when I asked you to do it, you said I can't decide between two Vonnegut books. I have this one and this one. I'm like, well, shit, let's just do them both because I wanted to read more. And
Yeah.
I'm glad you did because, yeah, he is like there's nobody really like him, really
Yeah, he was a very unique
much like him.
kind of voice that I really leaned on for a long time. Uh, there's just something about just the turns of phrase and like just the tone with which he wrote, and just kind of exhaustion, but kind of in glee of the just the how the universe just works. Um,
Yeah, I
and that
couldn't
always
put it in
was
this.
very comforting, but it's always like kind of exasperated, but like you like almost you have to hand it to the universe almost because it can throw you so many different ways.
Right, he's like I think you nailed it. I don't know how I'd explain him except I tell people he seems like he's got a huge heart, right? He wants the best for humans and society, but he
Hmm.
realizes that we're hurting ourselves constantly. We're just putting
Yeah,
ourselves in these positions that are not better for us as a society. But his messages have always like I think you said it. I feel something when I read him where I what he's trying to get across, I get it, and it's
yeah.
said like no one else says it.
It's very simple and to the point. It's like otherworldly. It's like uh, there's something very lyrical about his writing because it's so short and to the point. It's almost like just I don't want to say like Bible verses, but they're very like just short and to the point and they're very quotable. There's a Kurt Vonnegut Twitter account, which is just like a generator of all of his quotes, and you can tell uh, his stuff really stood the test of time. But they also make great tweets. Like they're really funny. Like he's like a stand up comedian's tweets. It's like but like
I
kind of
gotta
just
follow
old
that.
school stand up. He has to me he's like a cross between a musician and a stand up, um, because he's very observant and but like the way that he put it out was very just very poetic. It's very short to the point and very profound in its
You,
simplicity.
I don't know what it's called, but when you learn something new, and I actually looked it up and I forgot it already. That's kind of how my mind works. But it's where you learn something new and then you see it everywhere, or you
Hmm.
see it in everything. So
Yeah.
when I was reading Vonnegut and listening to your music, um, I don't know if it was just my mind putting it there, or is he an influence on you lyrically or musically at all? Or
He has been a giant influence on my writing. In terms of making trying to make light of trauma and trying to just make just approach things with levity,
right, like
just
the
trying
funnies
and
was
and
I
humor.
The Funnies stands out to me as like a Vonnegut type thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
He's watching the
especially
world end, but
especially
talking about
latter day Vonnegut right before he died, right like in the age of in the W Bush administration when like all he did was just I was just like I'm waiting to die and I hate George Bush, I hate Dick Cheney, I hate everything that they've done. They have ripped all our resources dry. Like we are done. Like I mean, if he would have lived another 10, 15 years, he
oh,
probably
he couldn't take it.
would have killed himself if
Right.
yeah.
But as I
Like
was listening
he
to
could
yourself,
not been he could not have handled what was coming our way. What's
how
what
does
we're in the
anybody?
middle of and right now.
And you know who I don't know if you've read any Gore Vidal. Have you heard of him?
No, no, but he's on the list. He's on
He,
yeah, there's a
he's
big
very
list of people I need
similar.
to
That's the one guy I think of when I think of wow, that guy's lucky. Because he's the same thing. Uh, Bush Jr., Bush Jr., Bush II was his
mhm.
ultimate enemy. By that time, I think he was in a wheelchair in the same thing. He's like, this man is ruining us. And then he passed away not too much longer. And it's like, whoa, if you could have seen us now. And just his books and his commentary are phenomenal too. But
Yeah.
yeah, and just listening to it. So I had this experience twice. I had it with listening to your music and like, whoa, Born a Rotten Egg, and just seeing like, man, maybe Alex, is pulling some of this personality and these, like you said, just saying things in a, I don't know, beautiful, poetic way, but sometimes they take a hard look at society. Almost like what the slapstick is supposed to mean. The way I learned it's supposed to mean is kind of like this is so ridiculous, it's funny.
Yeah. It's the
Yeah,
saddest thing. It's like the saddest thing followed by the saddest thing, followed by the
right,
saddest thing, and it's just humanity just looking around and just trying to find a way to survive.
right.
And
And I didn't
it's
get
just
that. I didn't get that. I could not understand that. It took me a long time and going back and rereading to really understand the title for me. And we'll get to that one in a second. Um,
yeah, yeah.
let's do Sirens of Titan first, which, my
All right.
goodness, this one has so much. This one is,
There's a
there's a
lot
lot
going
here.
on.
There's a lot going on. And so I thought we would just look at, t- I went and I do my research and I watched other people's videos, and pretty much as they would just go through the
Mhm.
plot, I mean, it would take a half an hour just to say, hey, this is what happened. And this, and I said, this isn't really for that.
There's
We
not
can't
A, B,
even do that.
C. There's
And then just trying to remember it. So I thought, let's just talk about what is Vonnegut trying to say to us? What's he trying to get? And I think one of the biggest things was obviously the one that most, when I was, that came across to me and you, um, was free will or the lack
yeah.
thereof. What do you think he was trying to? What was his goal on that? What was he? What was his message?
Um, I think a big part of it was control. I think a lot of the characters in this book were obsessed with maintaining control, and I think it's like quicksand. The more you fight for it, the more you lose it. The more, and that's where like Rumford kind of became sort of the Joker. Like he was kind of this like bloodthirsty, money hungry, sociopath, fucking anarchist, like just kind of just this weird
Egomaniac.
wild card, maniac, just hell bent on conquest. And he had the gift of seeing everything that's happened before and that will happen. And it's like, but when you know everything, that your free will's gone. So like, it's better to not know. It's better to just you know live in the moment and focus on being good and being the best version of yourself that you can be.
And what I learned about,
It's for free will. I think it's just it's one of those things that it might not be important. It might not be
yeah,
important because I think some people they give it up just to survive.
mm-hmm,
That's what like
right.
religion, the military, like you're giving up your agency to be a part of something to belong, and that's kind of also where it bleeds into slapstick too.
Right.
Just like it, but it shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter, I think, because it's
But
for all
and
you
when
know, like it it go on, sorry.
no, you go on. Go ahead.
Well,
No, I
it
got it.
ties in with the whole thing with meaning. It doesn't matter if free will exists. You just have to make your own. I guess it's like you have to make your own meaning because you end up realizing that like if you do find out what the meaning of life is, it might be very disappointing.
Well, yeah, and
Which is
I
kind of the case in the big reveal of the Sirens of Titan,
right. He because
in
Roomfield
which
thought
it was
he was it. He thought he was in control of it all. Correct.
he thought he was the alpha and the omega because he got to fall into a black hole
Right, and he
of sorts.
chronoplastic. What's I don't even know what it is. Chrono.
Chronosynclastic infundibulum.
Damn,
Chronosynclastic infundibulum.
and you didn't even have to look. Good job.
Oh no, yeah, no, I was obsessed with that thing for a long time. Just the idea of it, it just sounded so beautiful to me. It was just a place where everything made sense and everyone was right. Um,
But I
yeah, I
wonder.
would like that was like one of my favorite parts of because it was like I tried imagining it. I would write music for it, trying to imagine what it would feel like to go into one of those things. Just
And how did he
trying to
explain it?
score
Like
it.
a
I tried to
black
score it a
hole?
few times. What?
I don't even understand. So the way I understand it, he was traveling. He fell into. I pictured almost like a black hole type science fiction thing, and where his particles, almost like a proton or electron, or can be in more than one place or travel across the universe very quickly and at one time, right? And
Well,
go ahead, because you probably
I
understand
think
it better than me.
I think it's like his particles are scattered across a streak in the universe that follows from it said like the sun to the star Betelgeuse.
Right.
And then when the planets align to that one area where his particles are, he materializes. So that's what it takes every like 60 days to materialize on Earth. That's where the Earth aligns with that
That makes
th-
sense.
that line where the universe is. It's real weird. I'm
It's
re-
crazy.
revisiting it again. It's just so it's slapstick in its own right, but
Right.
it's also
And
so much more.
for those that haven't read the book, so you have this guy that does this, and in so doing, he's knows what's going around the universe, but he's also knows time. Time is different for him, so he knows past and future, and so he creates this idea. He has a plan that he wants to, I guess, unite humans and create a new religion. And so he works out
Mm,
this plan to do that. How am I going to bring, which I think comes together with Slapstick too. I think his heart actually for this uh, is in the right place because
yeah.
he's looking for a reason to bring humans together to not hate each other, not fight one another, which is a
But
not a
with
bad
other
plan.
human blood at
Right.
the expense of
Yes.
other human lives. That
Well, we've seen that before, right? Yeah.
yeah, he like brainwashed them and pretty much just, robbed them of their memories and of their personhood and just uh, to to serve like this military dystopian futurescape on
Martian
Mars.
army.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty nuts.
So they are like yeah, they are. There was nobody living on Mars, but
Oh,
people on Earth did not really know that. So he creates these people to live on Mars, to be Martians. Now they really
yeah,
don't have any control of themselves. They have something in their brain that makes them
antenna.
follow his orders, antenna that controls their actions, and his main goal is to get enough people up there, create an army, attack Earth, lose, and then the people on Earth come together. One goal. And what's interesting though is I saw on Facebook, and I know we both have the kind of the same feeling about this, but that was actually somebody, a conservative friend of mine, posted not too long ago. Is we need to go to war so America can come together. And I thought of this. I'm thinking,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. We need to like you said, we need to put these people, how removed can you be from sending people to war just so that we can, for like
Or
one
the
another
people,
again.
or certain people that believe that the U.S. had some part to do with 9/11.
9/11, right?
Yeah.
To well, shoot, we could get into all that too, but you,
Well, because
you know,
that was one of the last things to ever bring a nation together. Maybe second to a mutual hatred for a terrible, terrible person,
yeah, or
and it's
yeah,
kind of
then
and that kind of becomes in that kind of what the Church of God the Utterly Indifferent ended up
right.
becoming.
So that's the name of Rumsfeld's church,
Rumford.
Rumford, and his church, and who is it? They hated Malachi
Yeah,
Constant,
yeah,
and they
because
hated him. Go ahead.
he represented everything that was wrong with our state, the state of humanity, living to excess, narcissism, lack of connection to other people, like just I mean, kind of familiar.
Right. Yeah. That all he cared about was his wealth. He got a lot of his wealth from his father,
Yeah,
and I think this goes back to the whole thing about um, free will and determination is that Vonnegut shows that his father became wealthy purely by luck, right? Or we think by luck, right? Because he's using the Bible to get letters, and then he uses those letters to put
yeah,
money in the stock market and becomes wealthy that way. And I think one of his things is saying, free will. Sometimes, sometimes there is really luck there. Sometimes
yeah.
people don't put enough towards luck because some people do get lucky, and that's what leads them through life
It's
and
just those
don't recognize it.
those strings of events that leads to what could be construed as good luck.
Right. I think
It's just been
Malcolm
written ages ago.
well, yeah, right. Malcolm Gladwell. Have you ever read any him, or do you know who he is?
No, I've heard his name before.
Malcolm Gladwell is just a genius. He's one of my favorite people alive. He writes a sociology. I mean, they're sociology books. He's got a podcast out that's phenomenal. But he has a book called Outliers, I believe, and pretty much he
Hmm.
goes through why people, the most famous people, the most wealthy people on earth, how they got successful, and almost the biggest answer is luck. Something at the right time happened to those people, or one main event. You got the Beatles and Brian Epstein. You got, and they were great. Don't get me wrong, but that was a lot of marketing too going on, and how he's got them started. And Bill Gates has a story there, and all these people he's able to pull out this one event of luck, but nobody talks about that as far as success goes, which is odd. And I think he wanted to make a point of that. I'm not sure, but I pulled that from why would you go through that whole story about Malachi's dad
Yeah,
and his ridiculous way of getting wealthy?
yeah, and like I remember he wrote him a letter to read. Like he talked about his the way that he worked the stock market. He's like, I searched for a signal that like to try to find some meaning to that, and I never got it. I just got richer and richer.
Right, right.
Which is like in its own right another piece of slapstick. It just keeps happening.
Just I don't
Just
know why.
comical random forces of nature. Um,
So what do you think? And this is where I go back. So I go. We know the ending, and we'll talk about that in a second. You
yeah,
know, his. I think his message throughout the whole thing is it's not predetermined. I think he goes back and forth, and I could be wrong because some stories are showing me it is life is predetermined. With Rumsford, and showing that hey, you could try to go against me. I'm telling you what's going to happen. This is your future, right?
yeah.
And Constant, and they try to fight that, and he ends up losing his wealth and this and that. It is predetermined for these people, and um, but then he goes against that argument with uh, the religion, which says, hey, God doesn't really care. He's not here to watch over us. You can live your lives the way you want. He's not directing you in any which way.
Hmm.
I see just counter arguments here. Like he's almost saying, hey, there's an argument here for this side and there's an argument for that side. And then at the end, where you find out that, hey, this whole thing, Constant's dad getting wealthy the way he did,
Yeah.
every little bit. I mean, to the Great Wall of China and Stonehenge. This is all predetermined by an alien force, right?
Yeah.
So,
That's pretty much it. It's yeah, I think they called it idiotically simple.
yeah, right. So,
Yeah.
what is his? That's why I'm just trying. I walk away from these books, and this is why I need to talk about them with people. Is he trying to say we just don't have enough perspective? Like, as much as we think it's predetermined or not predetermined, we just don't have the right point of view. That we are so right down here. Our reality is this. But if you knew the reality that what's the name of that?
Tralfamadorians.
Tralfamadorians are really out there, and they
Yeah.
have been for millennia, you don't know that you are being directed. There's a different truth than the reality that we have. God, that sounds crazy for anybody that's never read this book. Doesn't it? I mean, yeah, that's
Yeah, well
like
there's a lot. I feel like we've kind of jumped back and forth, but that's what this book does anyway. Even though it is
right.
kind of linear, it feels like it just feels like a lot of back and forth, which I mean I love about it. But I again it goes for me. It goes back to just in the scope of things, like trying to find meaning in conquest and in riches, um, in wealth, in just in having control of your own destiny. Um, you get course corrected by the universe somehow,
Right. That's a good
and
way to put it.
because that's going to happen, you should just trust in that,
Hmm.
and find your own meaning.
Yeah.
Because like if like again, if you find out what this is really all about, and it's all pointless, then you've spent your whole life uh chasing a dragon, and the dragon
Like
wasn't even anything. It was an illusion.
poor
Just
Rumsford. At the end, he loses it. So holy
yeah,
shit.
even he loses control,
Yeah,
and
because he's like,
and he
this is
has to
all
just
not real.
surrender. Yeah, and he had his little goodbye speech, and he just like eventually just let go. Like I think everybody at the end of the book, everyone is let go, and they've allowed themselves to just you know be not to serve themselves, because they're not to serve for any purpose of like control.
Right.
They're just letting go of everything.
And I think now that you say that, I didn't get that before, but this is what I'm learning from what you're saying. Constant Sun Chronos, right? Chrono.
Chrono. Yeah.
I think that's what he did, right? He
He
took
did
your
his own
advice,
thing.
right?
Yeah,
He
he
just
found his
lived,
own. He just lived. He became a bird.
right,
He literally becomes a bird on Titan, on a
right.
fucking moon.
And so I had a question about like what is that about, and I think you just answered that. I think that's really what it is just do what's there, and that was really all that was there. And he was watching it,
He
and the things that stuck out. And
because he had his piece, and like he knew that like that was his good luck piece, but he also knew that like somebody else that it served a bigger purpose. And once he found
Mhm.
that purpose, he's like, okay, well, my purpose in this life is over. I'm gonna literally go be a bird. I'm gonna live amongst the birds, and
Right.
yeah, possibly start some kind of religion. I don't know, because I think he was building these shrines at the end,
Mm-hmm.
and like I think I don't know if those were for worship or just for art. Maybe either like just it's
Right.
funny like they were all these like shrines and sculptures, and I think B was writing a book. Like they brought art to this artless place.
Wow, that makes, yeah. See,
Yeah,
that makes sense. Is that they were just worried about this, worried about their own well being and
yeah.
what, yeah, rather than
They gave them
outside influence.
they finally gave into outside influence. They gave into to another person, into like uh being vulnerable for another person. I think it's about just letting go of yeah, just your existential hangups, and just like the whole thing, loving whoever's around to be loved.
And
Um,
that was a, is that
just
a, yeah. So that's a quote, a purpose of human life, no matter who is controlling it is to love
Yeah.
whoever is around to be loved. Right.
Because yeah, we could be controlled by aliens, we could be controlled by some other kind of alien, but like it shouldn't get in the way,
Wow. That's
I
awesome.
think.
See, I'm glad I had this. And maybe, and now I'm learning too, because one of the questions I sent you is why the Sirens of Titan, right? Sirens
Yeah.
are the calling, right? They call you, they lure you in, right? So I did not
Yeah.
understand that, but now I'm
It's like the
starting
things that
to.
call you, like Titan was his destiny, it was B's destiny, it was Chrono's destiny. And but like the sirens were all the different things throughout life, like the things that led Constant to Mars to become Ankh, to go to
So,
Mercury, all that
so the
stuff.
against the free
All
will,
those different,
that makes
all
sense.
those moving parts, yeah, were the sirens, the things
Gotcha.
calling him there.
They were calling you no matter what, you were going there, because
Yeah.
that's one of the things that threw me. I'm looking, and especially with book covers and this and that, I was trying to find all the, I think the art was phenomenal. I love fan art for anything. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I love to go in and find fan art. So I was doing fan art and I was doing covers, and the Sirens and this is as I'm just starting the book, and then I'm like
Mm-hmm.
done, and I'm like, there are no freaking Sirens of Titans.
Well, no, well, supposedly there's a photo, like in like the early part.
Right, the pool, the
They're
bottom of the
sharing
pool.
they're sharing photos. Rumford and Constant are like they're sharing photos, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I've been on Titan. That's where I'm. That's where I live now. That's where like my full body can live." And we got girls that look like this on Titan, because he was trying to get him to just show up, and he's just kind of
Right.
telling him like, "You're gonna be here. You might as well just come now, save yourself the
Right, that's right.
trouble, or we're gonna have to do something else." But he like there's a photo of like three beautiful girls, and yeah, like I think
and
that's the point where Rumford like shook him a little bit.
And
He's
weren't they like
cut.
painted at the bottom of the pool now that I'm starting to remember things too? I
Oh,
think they were.
in on Titan.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think that's what it was. So maybe, yeah. So maybe, yeah, they're here, but they were
in
painting on
spirit.
the bottom of the pool. Right, in spirit.
Yeah, but
Um,
I think part of the sirens are all the things and the people that led you, the things that led you to your destiny, along with the people that
yeah,
were
that
there
makes
along the
total
way,
sense, which I did not get early before.
the people
Have
that
you
you were meant to be with.
right? But well, gosh, because that brings up friendship, but that all falls apart, does it not? The people you're meant to be. I'm thinking of what's her name, B, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, and nobody ends. Well, I guess her and Constant,
for the
where they
last
had
year,
for the
for the
last year.
last
So
year.
yeah, I guess they did end up where they're supposed to be, and then Kronos with the birds. But I felt
Yeah.
bad for the robot,
Oh,
um,
Sallow.
Salo. Holy
Yeah.
shit! I mean, that was heartbreaking. Really, I don't know
Yeah,
what his
like
point was there. He wanted to do anything for him, and he's like, no. Rumsford was like, "You're not my friend," and that destroyed him.
yeah, he abused his friend. He abused Sallow just for his own advantage.
And
It's
Salah didn't
pretty
know what he
tra-
was doing.
Oh
Salah
no,
didn't
he
know that.
didn't.
Yeah, no, he
No.
wasn't a bad guy. He wasn't trying to.
He was
Uh,
manipulated, he was used. It was terrible, and like
and then he was used by him also too.
yeah. And
Used
then
by both.
he like died, and he like disassembled himself, I think, which is
Right.
a peculiar form of suicide.
Yeah, it was sad, man. That was
Yeah.
yeah. It's the robot. But then Chrono, is it Chrono that puts him back together? No, it was Constant that puts him back together
Yeah,
to
Chrono left him the piece.
the
He left
piece, and
like
then
the
he was able
piece
to
in the
put it on
middle
back
of
in.
all the yeah, and then he just kind of slowly put him back together
And
eventually. I believe
let's
so.
talk about that. So they put it back together, and he's going back to his planet finally after millennia. And
Yeah.
Malachi Constant's like, "Hey, do you mind if I catch a ride back to Earth?" Where he goes back to
Mm-hmm.
Indianapolis, which I think is where Vonnegut's from. Um,
Yeah.
and I again that helped me. I don't understand. I guess that was I don't know. It
Well,
was why go back
I
there?
believe by the because I don't know. I think his purpose was done. He lived. He got to live with B and Chrono on Titan for the rest of their lives, and I think maybe part of him wanted to go back down to Earth just to die.
Yeah,
I guess
just
he didn't want.
because.
I
Well,
guess there's. I
now
don't know why he didn't. I don't
now
know
I'm
why he didn't want
thinking,
to just die on Titan.
but maybe because then he loses, right? He fought. Now that I'm thinking about this,
Hmm.
he fought his whole life. Once Rumsford told him he's going to go to Titan, he fought against that.
Yeah.
He lost his wealth. He lost everything because he's like, I'm fighting this destiny you're telling me about. He ended up there. So maybe the final win for him, maybe just to say, hey, I didn't end up
Hmm.
on Titan. I get home, I die right then, but maybe, does that make sense? Just to kind of say that I didn't end up
I mean,
where you said I was, you were wrong.
it's feasible. I kind of think part of me was part of me is torn because like the part of Constant that actually learned all those things you would think doesn't care anymore. It's just like he's past living on the earth, living on Earth. It would be past that, but
You
I
That's what I thought.
maybe
And
he
that's
just
why
needed
I
some
was
just
that ending
maybe he
threw
just
me.
maybe he knew he needed other humanity. Maybe he was ready to love other people or to make himself available to other people for however long he had left.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then he just died. He just
Yeah.
couldn't do it. Or
In the
maybe
snow.
part of him knew that it was soon, and yeah, maybe he just wanted to be like I made it. I made my own destiny.
Right. That's I couldn't get that before, and I'm thinking that must
Yeah,
be it. Um,
it's
yep.
definitely an interesting take on it.
I just
Yeah,
came up with it.
I never I didn't think about that aspect too much. That like I felt like he was content on Titan, and that like he would have been content
Me
like
too.
after they're gone. He would have been content just living there till he passed. But
Well,
I don't know.
that was my exact thought as I'm reading it. And then he's getting on. He's like, "Hey, I want to go back," and I'm like, "Wait, why?" And I
Mhm.
didn't grasp it till honestly right now. I'm like, maybe just so that he can finally say, "You predetermined where I was. I had no control, and I'm not going to let that beat me like it did you. You just, you lost it. You disintegrated. You threw a fit. I'm going to just go back, and I don't care if I die there. My ending is going to be there, and you're wrong."
Yeah, I
It's
think
just
maybe because he served his purpose. Maybe and that's the thing about free will. Like maybe you have a purpose to serve before you get free will.
mm-hmm.
Like you do your part in the universe to advance other people's lives and other things,
And then you can do as you wish.
and then you can do as you wish, kind of like a ghost being set free. Um,
And we
so
saw
he
that
get
with another character, kind of,
which
Boaz or
oh yeah
Bose.
yeah he let go. He just he probably died in a cave.
Right,
Happy as a
but
clam.
same type of thing though. I think you're right. I mean,
Yeah.
again, that's why I do this. You're making sparks go off. Um, he did his part, right? He did. I mean, exactly because he had the antenna. He was the good soldier. He
Hmm.
was controlling, and then finally, he's just like, I'm done. We're here.
Yeah.
We're stuck here, and I'm happy with what I got.
Yeah.
And that goes back to the other thing that I said about before is friendship. I think friendship comes up a lot in this book. Um, where you have guys Salo and Roomsford just takes advantage of him. That guy worships him, a good friend. He thinks of him as
Yeah.
his best friend, and blah. And then
Almost almost
yeah,
all
guys,
of the main characters are like kind of friendless
yeah,
for the most part. Like
they're
Constant has
lonesome.
business, contacts and his partners, but he has no friends. He's kind of one of the world's most hated people. B is tough and hard headed, and uh,
Kronos doesn't have. I mean, he's good at German
bat
ball or
ball,
whatever that's called.
German
Yeah,
bat ball. Yeah, no,
German bad ball.
he's just kind of a foul mouthed problem child that's really good at bat ball. Like
Mm-hmm.
everyone's kind of uh for themselves. They're very like at arm's length with everybody.
hmm
and
And then
it's
he
it
becomes friends with what little, I don't even know what they're I forget what they're called. Harmoniums.
harmoniums. Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
harmoniums. Little
yeah,
they're really sticky Doritos is the way I think of them. Like,
yeah.
and
And
he's
they
like, "Hey,
glow
these
and
are my friends. They like me," even though we find out that that's not true either. But hey,
right.
he's cool with that. So maybe that is it. Maybe hey, you pull your part and you can just choose to, like you
You
said,
can
love
choose
what's
to.
around you, and that's what is around him, and they love him, and he loves them.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's like I think I'll just stay here. Just
Right? I
I'm
feel it.
fine here. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine here.
And
Right,
then
and that's
he's
all that
yeah. So
matters.
like B died. Chrono went on his way to be a bird and like live the rest of his life. So it's like my purpose is served. I'm gonna go home, or I'm gonna go see what I can find back home, and then just dies in the snow.
Gosh, it's funny. Just amazing. I would love to write a book, but I mean,
Hmm.
this is what books like this are just. They're so amazing. Just the artwork that is in this. I mean, not only the writing, but just this story and all the themes that you have to talk about. And we're hitting, you and I have read the book. Those people that haven't read the book, we're hitting like 10% of all the things that are going on. All
Yeah,
the
there's a lot of
others.
moving parts.
Oh my gosh, yeah. What's funny is going back to the story where if you learn about something, you start to see it or you hear that word all the time. So I
Yeah.
was reading this book while I did a temporary book club episode on Candide. Have you ever read Candide by Voltaire?
No, I have not.
Okay, you should because you'd like it. Because here's what I'm doing: I'm reading Candide by Voltaire. I teach the Enlightenment, and I'll be honest, this book was written, mid 1700s, and I'm like, I've read it before. It was okay. My buddy's like, give it another shot. And I'm glad I did. And I told him, I said, you know what? I'm reading another book right now by Vonnegut. And I said, Candide. And Candide is the 1700s Vonnegut. And he's like, I feel that. He said, I've read his books. He goes, I thought the exact same thing. So then I go back and I'm reading The Sirens of Titan, finishing it up. And I'm thinking this is all in my head, and it is kind of in my head. I'm like, holy shit, this is Candide. I'm reading, and I'm like, my buddy Steve. I said, Steve, this is nuts. I said, but this sounds like a modern day Candide. And he's like, oh yeah, I can see it. Da, da, da. So I googled it. Inter two or three stories written up. One of them said it's an intergalactic modern version of Candide. How fucked up is that? I mean,
Huh.
that's crazy. I'm reading these
I
two
gotta check this
books.
out.
Yeah, two books, centuries apart, at the exact same time that very few people put a connection to. And I'm reading it and I'm like, no, I'm putting this stuff together. But if you read Candide, it's and I know Vonnegut had to have read, of course he's read it. And I know just the ridiculous of the story, where it goes, the idea of Candide's about optimism and just saying, and God is not here to, and that's really what God it's about. At that time, they believed God directed everything, and he's pretty much saying, no, God is not in every situation of yours. And then I'm reading in Sirens of Titan, the name of the religion, God is what was the name of it?
The Church of God, the utterly indifferent.
Yeah, and that was where I'm like, wait a minute, that's the exact same message here. And then I went on and I'm like, holy shit, it's crazy. So I thought that I was like, I gotta tell Alex that's a nutty story, and you got to check it out. Like I said, it's
I
1700s,
will.
but it'll throw you through a loop. It's so interesting. Um, any other
I
things
like a
you
good
wanted to
loop.
touch on? Yeah, exactly. Any other things you wanted to touch on with this book?
I think we hit it pretty good. I mean, we did just get 10%, but I think we hit the heart of it a lot.
Right. Which is all we can really.
Uh,
I mean, I feel
yeah.
better. I feel like I understand it a little bit better just from getting your perspective. And that's really
Yeah.
all I try to do. I mean, you're trying to shoot. You get into. I mean, I know when I go into and look at like discussion questions or when I'm doing preparation work like that, I want to send to you. They
Yeah.
were all out there. I mean, that's why I just went with themes, because we could be concentrating just on, like, remember at the beginning when Constant goes to Rumsford's house and he climbs up the empty statue or fountain,
The fountains, yeah.
bowls, yeah, and then later that's filled. I mean, but I'm just saying, every question I saw was just very specific, and it's like, oh my god, that would take. We could be on. I used to do these
Forever.
podcasts; they took 3 or 4 hours, right? But that was a question that honestly I couldn't answer, though. I don't know
I
why. Go ahead.
I mean, it could be just as simple as just to note that time's passed.
Right. And that you haven't learned anything yet.
Yeah.
And that maybe now, yeah, right? Is that like
Yeah.
it's empty now? You're this is the start of your story, and it'll
Right.
be, yeah,
It'll
full
be
later.
full when you get back. Yeah. Like this, all
Exactly.
this water represents everything you've been through.
Right. But it just, I mean, the shit he puts in it. I mean, I just remember that scene of climbing up there, and you're thinking, oh, what is this? Just his genius just blows my mind. Before we go to the next book, and I wanted to do this before I forget. Have you read other Vonnegut? Anything
Yeah.
else you'd recommend?
Breakfast of Champions is really great. I've read the last one I read was Timequake, which was his last one, his last actual novel,
Okay.
which is pretty good. It's worth the read.
I heard
Man
that's
Without a
autobiographical. Is that correct?
it's yeah, it's half autobiographical. It's half uh part of it is he's talking about a book that he's working on. The
Okay.
second half is the book,
Okay.
and he kind of writes. It's kind of like Breakfast of Champions. He writes himself into his own
Oh, okay.
story,
I didn't know that. Okay.
and it's crazy. It's pretty good. Uh, Man Without a Country is very short and just lots of speeches and kind of opinion pieces that he does, like in the George Bush age. So he's really
Oh,
angry
gotcha.
and yeah, it's pretty fun. It's a pretty fun read.
What
Um,
about, have you read Bluebeard? Is
I
that
read
one?
half of Bluebeard. I've read half of God Bless You, Mr. Rosewater.
Gotcha.
And yeah, I've read Cat's Cradle. I've read Cat's Cradle twice.
Um, I was supposed to read the piano back when
I
whenever I
started
get
to read.
assigned a book, I won't do it.
I started to read. Yeah, right. I started to read Player Piano. It's pretty bulky, um, and I don't know, something about it didn't. I like the Sirens of Titan was the second book. So that
That
Player
you
Piano was
read?
his first. No, his Player
Oh,
Piano
that
was
he
his
wrote.
first book.
Gotcha.
Sirens of Titan was his second. So that's where he kind of found his voice and
Gotcha.
became Kurt Vonnegut. So it's just the first book is hard to get into
Gotcha.
because for one it's very hard and also it just doesn't feel like his voice.
He hasn't figured out it. Yeah.
He hasn't
Yeah.
figured it out yet, but he eventually gets it.
It's funny with
So
authors. Have you read? Is there any other author that you're really into?
I've been on and off into Tom Robbins for a while.
Okay. I
Yeah, I
couldn't.
enjoy his
I
stuff a
can
lot.
see that. I've
Yeah,
I've read one years ago, and I just couldn't get into it. And I think it was just where I was at. You go through different phases. I think
yeah,
after reading Vonnegut, I would be definitely into giving him a chance again, because I can see some similarities there. I mean,
yeah.
he was very
It's a lot of out there
out there.
sentences and ideas.
Hmm.
It's just very kind of punches you in the face with it, but it's really good.
Yeah, and I think I
It's
was
almost
not ready for that.
it's a
Yeah.
little intense, but it's kind of like a more intense Vonnegut. Where Vonnegut, like if you've ever heard him speak or just kind of look at a
Hmm.
photo of him, he's very laid back and gentle. He kind of just spinning yarns and stuff. Whereas like Tom Robbins, kind of with every sentence, kind of punches you in the face with it.
Yeah,
But
and
it's
I
he's
noticed
good.
that. Right?
He's really good. Yeah.
Yeah, I got to get back into him. It's funny. They say that don't read more than 5 books by any author, because then um, you start to lose maybe your respect, but you become judgmental because you think that they're not living up to something that you have already in your head. And I kind of found that to be true.
You get to see
I
the
will go
scope of their
back.
talent because like you
Yeah.
have that with Vonnegut too. Like you see like some of his best work and then some of his like, that's okay, or that was kind of weird. Like just you see like the whole scope of a person's life and their career and all like the swings that they took and the mistakes that they might have made or the regrets that they might have had, you know.
Right, and you start to become more. I don't know if I like them as much. I found that
I have that
Jose
relationship to
Saramago.
bands.
Oh,
I have the
sure.
relation like it's you know you follow a band long enough, you know everything they've ever done, and you know just like you like certain aspects of their career, like certain eras where you
Right.
know where it
Metallica. That was it for
yeah,
me.
yeah right. Everybody's got a different Metallica phase.
Exactly. Yeah.
Uh,
Anything after what the Black album, I was like, well, what the hell is what they do? You know?
yeah,
And then and honestly, they were one of my favorite bands. I mean, I would have, and I still do. They're great, but it's almost like for me, yeah, I stopped there. That's, and I'd recommend anybody.
yeah. And then some bands just put out like 2 records. You can
Right.
never have that with Nirvana. They only had like 4 records or so.
Right. Were you into Nirvana when they came out? Oh, you were probably shit. How old were you when they came out?
I was like
95?
well, no, I think he died in '95. They were
Oh,
like
wait. No,
'91.
God, when did I
So
buy? It was
I think
91.
Nirvana was well. I know Bleach was like '89, but they were big in like '91. So I was like
Nevermind came
4.
out 91. Yep.
Yeah,
91. He died in 90.
5, I
Yeah,
think,
five
or
or
4.
six. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I was about 4, so I didn't understand it then. It took
Hmm.
a while.
No
It
shit.
was a
Yeah.
yeah.
No way. Yeah. But you grew up with a different idea of them than I did. I bought their album the same day when it came out as Soundgarden.
Mm-hmm.
And it was all this new Seattle sound. Pearl Jam had come out, I think, just right before that, and it was like, so I went and I was at the record store buying those two, and it's so weird to now have the Nirvana story the way that it is because that's just it took a even when they were at their biggest alive, that MTV show shot it up, but it was when he died. That was what really got mainstream. Still, as I was listening to Nirvana, and you talk to the common person, most people did not want anything to do with it. You know what I mean? It was which is really it's just a weird story when you were a fan of theirs and lived through it to see what they've become now, and they're selling their T-shirts at
Yeah, he
Target.
accidentally became a martyr for his own brand. That the
Right,
brand that
exactly.
he didn't want.
Yeah. He fought against. Right. It's
Yeah,
interesting. It's crazy. All right. So our next book.
capitalism survived without him.
Oh yeah, yeah. A
Yeah,
shame.
until
So
it doesn't.
Slapstick or Lonesome No More, right? By Kurt Vonnegut.
Yeah,
Um, shoot. Oh, you know what? And I want to read the back of this one because I forgot to do it on the other one. All right. Slapstick. Let's see if this might not even say it. Oh yeah. Slapstick presents an apocalyptic vision as seen through the eyes of the current King of Manhattan and last President of the United States. A wickedly irreverent look at the all too possible results of today's follies. But even the end of the life as we know it is transformed by Kurt Vonnegut's pen into hilarious farce, a final slapstick that may be the Almighty's joke on us all. And I don't know why it took me so long to understand what this book means. We talked about it earlier, but it just means that there's tragedy, there's ridiculous tragedy, and it's almost humorous how bad it is, right?
yeah. It's kind of like the version of like you can't write this shit,
Right.
even though it's
This
a
is the end of
book.
the
You
world
mean
and it's funny.
yeah, because we kind of, as a society, like we kind of fumbled our way into the end. Like
And his
we
reason for that in this book, a lot of books you're going to say you're fumbled, they're going to give nuclear war or
mm-hmm.
pandemic or climate change or, something. And really his ultimate reason is lonesomeness, right?
Yeah.
That that everybody's really doesn't feel connected. And if we were connected, we might survive.
We wouldn't need to act out. I think one of his things was like I think he was talking about Nixon, like that he must have been so lonely. Like nobody commits crime, out of a fondness for sin. We're just
Mm-hmm.
lonely and don't know what to do. So we just act out for attention and for like illusions of power and control.
Yeah, I don't even want to bring him into it, but there are times I feel sorry for Donald Trump because you
I
can see
yeah,
that
we felt, it's easy to feel a lot of things for that guy.
it is, and it's weird, but you can see, like you said, you nailed it. Is he's doing these things for attention, obviously, for ego, his himself, but a lot of it is because he wants people to like him,
hmm
and so you can kind of say, man, that guy probably doesn't really know anybody.
Yeah, another like friendless person, but except he had one friend, and that was his sister.
Right. And that
So
that was
like because he misses his sister so much, he feels that if he can create that kind of connection that he had with his sister for the American people, they might have a chance at survival. And but
and
it actually works. Like everybody thrives in having 10,000 relatives and 20,000 cousins and whatnot.
it worked, but
Even as society crumbles.
right, that's what I was going to say. So it works, but what did he discuss what happened to society as it crumbled? Do you
Part of it was I guess like the downfall of American exceptionalism. Like we ran out of ideas and we used up all our resources.
Oh, in China,
And then
right?
China just kept advancing and advancing and
Right.
advancing until they became the Green Death, which
Yeah,
was
we kind of just rested on our laurels. We kind of just said, "Hey, we're here," and
yeah
China
we
kept
we
working.
mission accomplished ourselves
Mm-hmm.
into mediocrity, into like a dark ages. Really,
Yeah. Wow, what
we
a
let
genius.
yeah
I mean, he called it, right?
we just kind of sat there fat and lazy until the end happened. So
Yeah, and just the fact that I didn't even realize that I was bringing in Donald Trump and Wilbur Daffodil 11 Swain, the
yeah,
main character, is the president of the United States, which is just an odd thing to kind of really say. Yeah, I'm talking about both, but he wasn't alone, right? He was a when you recommended this book to me, and I saw it and I'm like, oh, this is about the last president of the United States. I really thought, oh my gosh, this is going to be very much a mirror story. And it is a lot of it, like you said, the downfall of our country, but the president is very different.
yeah.
I wanted to blame him as I'm reading it. I'm like, this is going to be his fault. And I'm like, oh, well, no, this guy is not, it's not his fault.
See, he's like a version of Trump that like you'd kind of root for, in the sense like if Trump was actually telling the truth about like I inherited a mess. It's like no, you didn't. Like Swain actually, like, he was elected as the economy was failing, as the Chinese figured out how to control gravity. Which was a
Right.
whole other
Forgot
thing that
about that.
led to
Holy shit.
that's the other part, is that the Chinese advanced so much that one of the things they uh, figured out how to do was how to control gravity.
And there's high gravity days and low gravity days.
And
Some days you can't even get off the ground.
some horses' insides just fall to the ground.
I forgot their legs
Yeah,
crumble.
then their legs crumble, cars, pretty much crush like into
Planes
cubes.
falling out of the sky. I
Yeah,
forgot about that.
telephone
That's
wires
funny.
breaking. Yeah, and so they learned how to do that, and that mixed with the downfall of American exceptionalism, resting on our laurels, all that
Mhm.
happened, and we just kind of let it happen.
We
Like
let
the
it
house just
happen.
starts crumbling around you, like comically, like a Buster Keaton movie, kind of.
Wow. Yeah, and that's the slapstick, and again, I didn't think of that, but we just went through that scene and that is funny, but it's horrible. but it is funny. It's slapstick. All these
Yeah.
things happening, the legs going out on the horse and the plane coming out of the sky is slapstick
Yeah.
comedy because you're like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. The most cartoonish of fates befall almost everybody, and that was kind of like in the prologue, which is like one of my favorite things to read. I've read that thing like several times.
I'm gonna have to recheck it
Just the
out.
prologue, where he's talking about like how he came up with the story. He talks about his sister, about the connection he
Oh
had,
yes, I love that. Yes.
and she was diagnosed with cancer, and while she was ailing from that cancer, her husband died on a train that hurled itself off an unfinished drawbridge, and just like
I forget they did.
she took her life as a series of accidents. Like she didn't
Yeah,
assign it to any meaning. She didn't assign any meaning to anything that happened to her. So she just like, well, like just her having to, you know, orphan her kids,
I
and
forget.
then
She
like
did
seeing
find
that
out though, right? Because they weren't going to tell her, and I can't remember if I blocked that from my mind. They
they
did
weren't
tell
going to
her.
tell her. No, they didn't want to tell her, but a nurse accidentally
Uh,
left like a newspaper around, and she read it, and like just looking at all of the things that happened in her life, one after the other, culminating in cancer and culminating in her husband hurling off a bridge. One of her dying words was slapstick.
yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
this is
because
ridiculous horror.
yeah,
My kids are going to be by themselves. We're both dying. Oh my god. Yeah, I forgot about that. And he, we'll get into this about the novel, but he said that I never told my sister. He said this is biographical, and he said, but I
mm-hmm.
never told my sister she was the person I was kind of. He said it later. I think it was all his siblings, but she was one of the main people that he was writing for. And I was going
Yeah.
to ask you this question. He said a lot of artists do that. They have somebody in mind when they're writing. Do you do that? Do you always have somebody in mind, or
I often think about that a lot. I think sometimes I do. I have old like my parents, and I keep my parents in mind sometimes when I write. I keep old friends in mind. Just
but you usually have somebody in mind when you're kind of writing to that person, whether they know it or not.
yeah, unless I'm doing an exercise, then it's just kind of it's just kind of a blank canvas. It's just kind of to create. Um,
Gotcha.
but most of the time I have I think of my family and my friends.
I think
But I don't have one set person. I don't think.
no. Yeah,
No.
that's interesting. So I think, and this is off topic too, but I asked you about your one song. Now I'm going to draw a blank. The Crack the Smile.
Sky cracked a smile.
Sky Crack the Smile.
Mhm.
And I asked you where that came from because just the lyrics just are amazing. And that was an exercise. Am I correct?
It was yeah. Well, I mean, my father was cremated, so like, and I have relatives that have pieces of him, scattered across the country. Uh, but it was also a part of a 52-week club thing. Willie T. Taylor runs it with Chris
Gotcha.
Dowd and a few other people. Uh, and one of the entries for that week, whatever week it was rainbows and rug burns. My friend Jeff Coleman
Mm,
came up with that, and I just went from that, and also watching The Big Lebowski, and I put all those things together, and kind of,
I would have
I
never
put
guessed that.
the ashes scene at the end of Big Lebowski
Oh,
in
gotcha.
with uh, just thoughts of my father.
But then you related it to your gotcha.
I
Okay,
re-
that's
but I
amazing.
related it to I turned it into kind of a love song about um, either a husband or a wife, going somewhere to say goodbye to their loved one.
That's the way I took it. Right.
And yeah,
Because
it's
the
very like,
kids have you in them still, and
mm-hmm,
right. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, that was an exercise in its own right, but there was some reality in there.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's one of most yeah. That's amazing song.
Well, thank you.
Um, many of them are. You're one of my favorite artists, and that's not just saying that.
Well, I appreciate that.
You're very welcome. Um, so let's see what else we got on here. Uh, what is his the story loneliness? What is he trying to say? We know the story. He Wilbur grows up with his sister in a mansion. They're
Yeah,
deformed, but when they're together, they're geniuses, right? And when they're
yeah,
this part, they're Betty and Bobby Brown because they really have no personality. They can't think for themselves. They can't do much,
yeah.
or so they thought, right? So that was where I took. Let's start there. As far as what is he trying to say about loneliness, togetherness, working
Uh,
together?
I think one of the things ties into the German community, like that he grew up in. He's a German American citizen, But there's a lot of ties to the old country. Before World War One, there was German culture was, it was something to celebrate. It wasn't tainted by what was to come next, and so a lot of people kind of denied their identity just to survive.
Wow.
Just like kind of how some people give up their free will to survive. Like you give
Sure.
up a piece, you give up a piece of yourself in order to carry on.
Wow.
And with like loss of identity, you just you're kind of this blank slate, and you're just kind of by yourself, and
Lose power.
you lose power in chasing like the American dream of like doing everything on your own, and pulling yourself up by your own bootstrap. Like you kind of are working for yourself, and you lose like all sense of community and togetherness and belonging. So that's where
Yeah.
like sociopaths come in, and like people that are just here for power and to rule the world with iron fists.
Did you pull that from the prologue, or did you just know that from knowing Vonnegut?
I mean,
Like that
I
idea?
pulled that from the prologue, but I've read up on his life before.
Because that's amazing. That's really interesting.
That's
and
a
I
big
remember
part of
talking
the
about
prologue.
Yeah, because he's talking about Indianapolis. I remember that, and going
Mhm.
back, and he's proud of where he's from, but everybody's spread out. Yeah, but I didn't think of that. Just the countering cultures of unity. It takes a village type thing that
Yeah.
took that humans have been for what since we've been Homo sapiens and humans. And now you have this new culture, this American culture of individuality, capitalism and individuality. And you will look out for you and yours, F everybody else.
And family is just one unit, if not maybe two units, like a cousinhood or anything. But like, there's no real like like yes, family, but your family is also your community.
Right. God, I don't know how that's again, you're nailing why I do this is so many people, I grew up, I know where I grew up, my friends and family, and God love them, I was conservative until I was 24, just because I grew up around everybody that's conservative. That was my family. That was it until I started reading and learning and really, knowing about society and caring about society. And so many people I go back to, they're still the same way. And the talk that they have with me, I'm so naive, is just like, Mike, you need to just worry about you and your family, and that's it. And so I didn't put that together with the book until you just said it. I knew what he was talking about with connection, but you're exactly right. Vonnegut was taking that idea that I'm being told all the time and trying to say, okay, if that's what you're just supposed to care about, then let's make everybody your family, or let's extend that, because that's how it should be. If for some reason you have this link to just these 10 people or 20 people, then let's extend that, because that's really how the humans are supposed to exist.
Yeah. And then that you're taken care of all over the country, and wherever somebody has your same middle name, that you're taken care of, and they know they know that right back in turn. Like
It's an
a level of
amazing
comfort. There's a level of comfort that comes with that.
And it happens in sports. It happens in a lot of. There are things that exist that same way. I'm a Bengals fan, and that's horrible to be, but I'm a Bengals fan, and the most Trump-loving conservative that I would, just like any other day, I might give a high five to if I run into him at a tailgate. That brings us together. Those things, we should have a lot of that brings us together, and Vonnegut tapped in on that. So just for people that don't know the book, the guy that grows up with his sister, they're connected. He becomes president, and his one idea is say, lonesome no more. We don't need to be lonely. We're going to create artificial families, and we're going to create middle names for everybody. I think at random. Is that correct, Alex?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like
random
a lottery of names.
lottery, and you'll get a new name. And then if you meet somebody with your same middle name, you are considered family. So if you need to borrow money off that person, or need a favor, or just whatever you treat family for, give them a hug, then they are now officially your family. And I think that's just a really cool idea.
It's a unique way to spread kindness and to make
is.
kindness more accessible and empathy more accessible. If you like just look, it's fine. Like the government has to force you to look at somebody you don't know as your friend, as one of your own.
Mhm.
But I think once it's implemented, like it's pretty easy for people. Like it's their duty. It's their like it's that's where like patriotism actually works out. Is that it's your American duty to look after your neighbor, to look after anyone that shares your name.
What's funny though is I just thought, I was thinking this as you talked. There could be a backlash to this, or a dark side, right?
Yeah.
Because of rivalry and competition, right? I don't know. I'm just thinking like in my mind, I'm like, gosh, this would be so cool to kind of not implement, but we got the internet right now. You could kind of just make random things and give people last names and kind of just do a thing. You got Pokemon Go out there. Why not just randomly give names, and you got a name and then go with? But then I'm thinking like,
Call of Duty Warfare, anything that any kind of Instagram, any social media, that's all. I mean, that's.
Those
are we on Facebook? Are we on Facebook right now?
We're on Facebook.
Yeah, we're
right
on.
now.
We are broadcast to an artificial family,
Right.
and we're like even like the Church of the Christ the Kidnapped, like that's it's not so much a religion as it's like a conspiracy theory group. And those conspiracy theory groups we have right now are in their own right extended families, because they
are
together by
they
a
believe in
purpose
crazy,
and a sense of
they come together because they were like, man, I believe this too. Let's get together. But my thing
curly Q misfits.
But my thing is, so I'm just wondering if we did the middle name thing, just being pessimistic there, in the long run, would you have like the McCoys and what is it?
And the Hatfields.
Yeah. It would be like I think the daffodils and the rainbows like fighting each other,
I was revisiting the book again earlier, and there's a part towards the end. I think they're having like their council meeting, I think in Illinois. I think it was the Daffodils or something, and they're talking about because like certain parts of the country have broken off, like Sooners, the King of Michigan. So Michigan, it's his own thing.
Right.
All these different, and they're talking about some of these people are at war, and they're talking about how like they can't wait to go kill a Sooner unless it's a daffodil. And if it's a daffodil, we got to work something out. So there's just like it's a little kind of a comic punch, is like that's that American bloodthirst, but it's kind of being tamped down by like the new way. It's
right.
Like,
yeah.
You're can't wait to kill somebody if they're not my family. If they're my family, like,
buffering it a little bit with some artificially created family that Americans could easily fall for it.
You feel automatically like tied to them somehow.
Right. But, I think it, like I said, just with sports teams, and you feel are fans of a band, you're on a fan page and you feel that camaraderie with those people. It is a family,
Juggalos, family. That's what they're all about. Family.
What they say? Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of their chants.
So it's good we got it out there, and I think Vonnegut was tapping in on that, and he was just saying, "Hey, we need more of this."
And directed the right way, Direct the purpose is the only purpose is to be family and help each other out.
And to think like if we could implement that before the next Civil War,
Did you see that Daily Show? Daily Show did a recent clip of, I forget the guy's name, but he's a genius that goes out for the Daily Show and does the Trump rallies. And he was in Pennsylvania.
Oh, Jordan Klepper, I think.
Yes, Klepper. And he was in Pennsylvania like 2 weeks ago. Did you see that?
I haven't seen it, no.
That's hilarious. He's like, we are 4 days away from this. We're 1 month away from the next election, and we're about a year away from losing a loved one in our next civil war.
nailed it.
Yeah,
That guy's he's a genius.
I love it. I mean, I love it for the wrong reasons, but I love
No,
it.
me too.
So
The other thing I wanted to he loves to get in on religion. A lot of things have to do with religion. This
Mhm.
one is the Church of Jesus the Kidnapped, and
Yeah,
I think
Jesus
it's
Christ the kidnap.
hilarious. But
Yeah.
what is his point here? You got to help me here. But I think the funniest thing is that is the scene. It's slapstick of
Yeah.
him. If they're a member of the church, they're just
To me, it only speaks.
constantly looking around.
It only sounds like like a conspiracy theory group. It's like different than religion. It's like it's just it's like it just doesn't feel like a religion. It
right.
feels like just a straight up conspiracy theory group that like, oh yeah, Christ is alive, but we need to rescue him.
Right.
You know, just like
Be on the
a
lookout.
lot of the far fetched QAnon things. It's just like,
Mhm.
okay, like these children need our help. It's like, yeah, you might be right, but you're not right about this.
No.
Like there's like kernels of truth that you're working with that don't really add up to anything. So it doesn't feel. I mean, apparently it turns into like one of the bigger religions. I think
Right.
towards the end of Wilbur's life. But I just don't know. This doesn't feel like a religion to me at the time. It feels more like a cult. It feels like a cult rather than a conspiracy theory group. But they go hand in hand anyway.
Yeah, they do. And now that I'm seeing the difference, there is a difference there. You're exactly right in that they're believing. Personal opinion, I believe that a lot of
There's not a lot of truth out there about the real Jesus Christ, and
Yeah.
that is a lot of made up, and it is made up, but it's not ridiculousness. Well, maybe it is. Maybe I don't see much of a difference. I don't know.
And it's
I
so
went back
vague
and,
because this is the forces of evil. Like, okay, who are the forces of evil? Like,
right, yeah, and yeah.
who are we against? Like, who are we versus? Like,
Isn't that the best that you can unite people? Yeah, when they're like
some
right now.
blind blanket statement, like some blind blanket like shadow figure that we're supposed to hate, kind of like a
Malachi Constant and the space.
Like no,
Wonder.
because they sold in for that religion they
hanging.
sold little effigies that
Right.
they do. Yeah,
He was hanging from a noose, right?
yeah, these little cute little toys where you're hanging off a noose.
And I don't want to get into that, but that was another thing I didn't understand how Vonnegut. He was almost a martyr as a spaceman, or not a. I don't understand.
He wrote him as the Antichrist,
right?
Because he just didn't like. I mean, I think,
but he
Rumford
wasn't
had
as a spaceman, though, was he?
He wasn't what?
When he was the spaceman.
Oh, the space wanderer.
Space Wanderer. So Malachi was the Antichrist, right? Space Wanderer, they didn't know was Malachi.
Yeah.
He was looked at as like
a Messiah. I thought the way I viewed it, this is going to be the second coming of Christ. Like this is what he's going to be dressed in. We're going to know him like this, and then correct me there.
I think they were excited because. Excuse me, I got seltzer mouth. I think they were excited because the predictions kept coming true. That's how the Church of God the Utterly Indifferent became legitimate, because Rumford had the Gray Sports Almanac, if you will. Like
I'd follow it. Shit, if he was
like
getting
Biff,
all that right.
like Biff. That's how Biff made his fortune,
right?
Because he just had access to the future. And so he made this religion work by just calling it each time, just winning.
Right.
I think they were excited because it was coming true, and then he explained to the crowd like why we're to hate this person, and then he turned him into an antichrist.
Yeah,
like, this is the guy I was talking to you about. This is like they're the same person.
Now you are shunned.
Yeah, and then they sacrifice him.
Right.
Kind of.
Which has a lot to say. I mean, another thing, you could probably read this book and try to, with the sacrifice and all that, try to match it up with the Christianity. I'm sure Vonnegut has a lot more connections there than I was able to make, or, the first.
It's like an honor ritual, like in order to like fulfill the prophecy of this religion, and to make it like to seal it with like this ritual, like this sacrificial, like almost like a spiritual crucifixion. Like we're getting rid of this person, we're shooting him into the sky, and he's gonna be gone forever, or like defeating the devil and burying him way down below. Just a
and you could take the book to a part 2, and I could see Vonnegut then making his story where he is the sacrificial lamb, where he did live up there, and then he came back home, and you know what I mean?
like Christ, he came back.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I mean, as you were talking, I'm thinking of this, and I'm like, well,
like
what?
If Jesus Jesus comes back and then just dies,
right?
What if that
Well,
was
he did? Isn't that what he did?
Well, no, like comes back and then dies.
Well, that's
Christ, like Jesus Christ. That's what Constant did.
Oh, and then just right. Well, Jesus came back for what, 3 days, and then I guess his dad just took him home. Is that the story?
Yeah, you just got to ride home.
You got to ride home. You got to hang out with pops.
Yeah, for Slapstick, I don't know. It just doesn't feel like it's technically called a church, but it feels more like a weird cult or like a club. It's like a subset of a church.
I think he was trying to show the downfall, the apocalyptic side of just what people are believing in at this time. You're exactly right.
Yeah. And it's its own extended family.
Right. Just another one they jumped on. You're exactly right.
Another, but based off of very far-fetched beliefs, which makes it feel like a conspiracy theory group.
Yeah, crazy beliefs with a seed of maybe some seed of truth.
Kernels of truth.
The last thing I wanted to talk about, which is just off though, but the whole thing with, and this is again why I do this, because this doesn't mean a lot to the book, but it meant something to me. The King of Michigan, his dad was their doctor. I just wanted to know, this whole connection with him and who he was. I didn't understand that whole thing. I really didn't understand, why is he even a character? He didn't do much, right? King of Michigan. Did they just want to show that Michigan was separated?
I think it's just one last little poetic punch of like, look how everybody's connected. Look how random people from lives before can come back in different ways and influence, the flow of human history. I think that was just one little thing. It's like, this guy grew up to be, the son of so-and-so, just like
it humanizes it a little bit.
Yeah. And just like the granddaughter, like how she ended up showing up, like who, like what led her, like just pretty much the ties that led to the end point.
Well, and then they
just like funny little like, oh, like, isn't this kind of funny and convenient,
Right.
It's just like a little punch of like, ooh, hi ho, like slapstick. It's like a pratfall. It's like another like slipping on a banana,
But hi ho, is that what that is?
Yeah,
when he kept
I think
saying,
so. Well,
he said, "I'm going to stop saying hi ho," but he kept hi ho.
But every time he says it, just like so it goes with Slaughterhouse. It only happens when something exhausting happens, or when somebody, like he says, so it goes whenever somebody dies. But whenever something like terrible and exhausting that can only make you kind of laugh, it just like when the slapstick moment hits, it's hi ho.
That's all you can
It's always like a level of exhaustion.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. And then one other thing too, the question I had with the granddaughter had a baby.
Mm-hmm.
They buried it in Manhattan. It's gone, in a basement right there. And then they were building a temple on top of it.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know I honestly didn't know what to take from that. Is there anything you got from that? Maybe just loss of, it's the apocalypse. There's nothing here. We're going to
just like
have our own rituals, new.
Well, yeah, I think it was because it kind of ends in like we're in like a new dark age,
right?
And
it doesn't have to make a lot of to them. It makes sense.
It's just new rituals. I think
right. That's what I'm thinking.
It was like a tribute to like, I think it was just a way to honor a life that didn't get to live. It was just a way. It's a new way to grieve in a new age, in a new.
But it goes back to what do we see from Neolithic times? A lot of times what we're finding are the same types of
well, you got the pyramids, which are a grand example, but you got smaller examples of that also, of just rock, to rock formations or stacks or whatever that just show meaning, I guess.
You're like at the like the foothills of like a new reality. You're making a new history.
They're creating.
You're creating new rituals, possibly, like that other people will take and turn into new things and so on. It's just like one of the last human things is to keep traditions going.
Awesome.
And build new ones. At least that's
has to be it.
Get out of it.
What a genius. Hey, Alex, I want to thank you for making me read these books, because I can't wait to read more. Thanks for giving me so much time of yours.
Thanks for letting me do 2 books with you, man. That means a lot.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
I hope I kept you and the people watching entertained.
You know what? I usually don't have people watching, just so you know. But again, it's one of those things. They'll catch it on YouTube maybe, but like I said, man, and this is why I do it. Like I said many times, is I always come out. I don't know if it's just my brain or how it works. I feel like I get it. I could talk to other people about it, but I just have questions. I just don't understand. And you answered a lot of those questions, and that's all I'm trying to. I just want to feel done with the book. Does it feel like now for you? I mean, for me, I always feel like this. I'm like, okay, these 2 are good.
I like to revisit those books either way, just because I don't know. I always seem to get something new out of them. So sometimes I get something new out of it until I don't. Right. But I've experienced those stories maybe like 3 or 4 times now. Yeah. And I still keep getting something new out of it. So
and that, amazing. So many people I talk to, because I'm in a lot of book clubs and stuff on Facebook. So many people, it's like a controversy whether to reread a book or not. And
you watch old movies.
Exactly. And you learn. I can't tell you the amount of stuff that comes through. If it's a good book, the amount of stuff like Vonnegut or so much. The second time, it's like, wow, did I miss this? Holy smokes!
If I eat a tuna sandwich and I like it, I'm gonna probably have another one someday. Down the line. I'm not gonna deprive myself of something that makes me feel good just because I've already experienced it.
And I think
we can't listen to records once.
Right. I think books are looked at different because they do take time. You can listen to a record in an hour, and I think for in a book is time, so they're like, I want to try the next one, and then and I don't want to go backwards. And it's like, no. If you enjoyed it, you're going to get a lot. You're going to get the same thing out of it. Plus, if you liked it a little bit, as I was talking
with layers like these, like there's a lot of things that you miss, and there's a lot of moments that you witness, but when you reread it and like you have a newer outlook, like those things mean something so much different and so much more. Like it always gives back every time.
Yeah, it does. And there's a book, as I was have you ever read Herman Hesse?
I actually have a few Herman Hesse books like lying around. I forgot what they're called. Like I bought like a big box of just awesome, just random books from a.
Now this may mean nothing, but as we're talking and just things I think a really cool book you might like, and I could be wrong, but Steppenwolf by Herman Hesse is one of my.
That's one of the books I have. It's on the list. It's
well, if you read it, and if you want to do this again, I would love to have you back.
Steppenwolf. All right.
Steppenwolf. Check it out, and if you want to come back, you let me know. I won't pressure you, but
Radical.
I appreciate it so much, man. I thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me, man. I love talking Vonnegut with good people.
Awesome.
I'll talk to you soon. If you're watching, be good to yourself, be good to others, and I'll see you again real soon.
Thank you, Alex. Have a good night, man.
Peace out. Bye.